Hi there. Hello everybody. Today we have Love It or Shove It again with you all. Today for episode 63, we have Meg, um, a dating prevention coach, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And we're here today for dating tips. All right. So Meg, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, how did you come up becoming, a dating prevention coach, violence, and yeah, enlighten us.
Okay. Well, I'm in the United States, in Colorado, and through going through a very horrific event or experience with dating, and not really realizing that people could experience violence with dating, I kind of had an illusion that violence came with people who are married. I just had this image in my head of who would be a victim of dating violence or violence in particular. And so after 7 years of being stalked and first experiencing physical violence and sexual violence, financial abuse, all of that, all the abuses combined, I when I was recovering, I just decided I wanted to help other people and realize that everyone, even if they're not dating, having a healthy relationship is a priority in your life because it leads to stuff like mental illnesses and all different things if you're in unhealthy relationships. And so I decided that this is the way to help people and give them the information so they can know whether they're in a healthy or unhealthy relationship, and then make the choice and be aware of what's going on. And so that's kind of where I came to be. I From 2013 to 2020 was the experience I had, and to 2021 I started Dating Tips by Meg. And at first I started with thinking that I would do digital forensics. I would help people who were being digitally stalked. And then I came to a couple of podcast shows and people were saying it's better or you can reach more people if you're doing speaking or coaching and getting out there and spreading the message that way versus being able to help one or two individuals over a year's time with their digital stalking issues. So that's kind of in a nutshell where I came. I mean, the story is long, is pretty different or is bigger, but in a nutshell, that's kind of how I came to figure out that this is what I wanted to do. I probably wouldn't be doing this if I hadn't had my own personal experience.
Fascinating. That is amazing, and that is not because of what happened to you, but at the same time, it is amazing because of how much you learned and how much you overcame through it. Um, that is really good. And so tell us, what, for instance, like what, for instance, what can you do to, what are the first signs that you can tell in somebody when you know that the person is not what the person looks like? It's, for instance, catfish,
Right.
or like how can you start to prevent yourself? Like what should you notice first?
Well, I think it's really hard when you first start in a in a relationship because there's a lot of things that are going on and they're new to you anyway. I would say, even myself, I experienced love bombing. So there was a lot of very intense emotions very quickly, moving in very quickly together, uh, going away on vacations together, just a lot of things that you would normally happen like later in a relationship, but they also seem kind of flattering, like jealousy. Jealousy is probably one of the number one things I hear from people at the beginning, but you take it sometimes as a compliment at first. So someone's a little jealous, and you kind of think, "Oh, this is flattering. Oh, they really like me, or they really love me," and so you don't really think of it as a bad thing. But then it grows and it gets more intense over time, and so just kind of noticing something like that early on. Is it too intense, or maybe you start to feel like it makes me kind of uncomfortable, like in your body. You kind of feel like, oh, this just feels kind of weird. Like maybe I maybe it should be a little bit less than what it is kind of experience. And so jealousy is definitely one of those that pops up pretty early. And then one of the other ones is either isolation or possessiveness. Kind of they want the you to themselves, and they kind of
Mhm.
start eliminating your friends or making sure who you're going to be with, date, where are you at all times, and just it's the control, possessive with the jealousy kind of just comes together with they don't want you to be around other people because there's this extreme jealousy thing. So if you're always just with them, that kind of eliminates part of that, the part of that cycle for them. But yeah, I would say think about those two things. Usually are the ones that come up first.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, especially with the love bombing. You're talking about the love bombing.
Yeah,
Uh, that's something that especially comes to gain the trust, the victim's trust, right?
right.
Um, because if you have no other reason but to trust somebody because of how much the person is this and that, right?
Right.
Just like,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Well,
so
sorry, go ahead.
no, go, Meg, go. If you have
No,
something to say, go.
I was just
Yeah,
saying, yeah, love bombing. I mean, it feels like good things. You get lots of gifts. Like you're seeing them all the time. There's lots of time, and time involved. They have lots of attention for you, and they say affectionate things very quickly. So it kind of feels good, but in reality, people should there should be a step back. Like it's a love whirlwind kind of thing, and it's really, I mean, it's difficult. Those things at the very, very first, because they do feel good in a way, and kind of being able to identify that they're not as good as they seem, it can be a little bit hard. And so you'd add in the next few things that would come along, and kind of confirms that, oh yeah, this wasn't the best idea, or this isn't good. If you're moving in with someone, within a month and a half after meeting them, it's, from the outside, people are going, that's unusual, that's weird, but to you it's like, wow, they love me so much, we're gonna move in together, we're perfect for each other, because they've made everything perfect. And that's when it starts to crumble, because now they've got you living with them, kind of isolated from other people, 24/7, you're in their sights. So
yeah,
um yeah, I wouldn't
absolutely.
say it was easy,
Yeah.
but yeah.
No, it is definitely very hard because it's like they got you exactly where they want you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like the moment, like, yeah, it's like the moment you step inside their own world, it's like they got you exactly where they want you to, right?
Yeah.
Because then they will know what's going to happen and they can always be in control, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so this reminds me of a TV show. I don't know if you have watched it, called You.
Oh, yep. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely watched in the very
that's
beginning.
yeah. Um, that's crazy. Like like that's the next level, like narcissistic, like untrustworthy, like vibe, like. And it's crazy how you see how, like, the mind of how these people works,
Yeah.
like very, like, detail driven, like very, like, always, like, very, like, critical thinking. But the critical thinking behind these people, it's very, like, it's very biased towards
Right.
their own opinion. It's like they always manage to find a way to make it about themselves for some reason, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And it's like, um it's the lack of boundaries, right?
Right. Oh,
that
definitely.
that right, that they don't have. Because if you think about it, it's like, if you don't have boundaries in giving, if you just give, then you will not have any boundaries in receiving as well,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah. Definitely.
And the expectations that a person can have, right, towards it, can truly. Expectations are, the quickest way to disappointment, right?
Right.
But if you, in the hands of these people, right,
Hmm.
that don't have the right perspective, towards life, towards relationships, right?
Right.
Because if you think about it, these people actually believe they're doing something right,
Oh, definitely. Yeah. They
right?
say have a painted picture in their head that they're perfect, yeah, in a way.
Exactly, like they actually believe they're doing something right. And so, um that's what, it's a little bit hard to understand. But then it's when you tell them that they're not doing it right, that they
Mhm.
get defensive,
Oh, yeah.
because it goes against everything they always believed, because you're robbing a piece of them, right, that
Hmm.
they're not willing to throw away, because that goes against everything that they defend, which is control, 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 right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And right. And so it becomes hard to deal with a person who can become unstable because they don't have the control, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, for instance, like, what do you think that like, what do you think that, a person who, for instance, that is in your situation, right, or was in
Hmm.
your situation, a person who was in your situation, um what do you think that person should do, uh, to deal with, the person's instability? Like, obviously they should talk to somebody, but at what point? And, for instance, like, what are the first signs? Like, what are the, like, how can you notice that the person is not who the person is saying the person is? How can you notice the love bombing? Like, how can you become aware that is love bombing, right?
Right. Well, I think it's the thing is that they're kind of manipulative, so they make it kind of sneaky. Like people say, "Oh, I give flowers every day." Oh, that sounds so romantic, and so it's definitely, like we were saying, it's just hard to recognize it. But knowing that maybe internally you're just feeling a little uncomfortable with this, like they call you all the time. I mean, that's another thing, the obsessive communication and asking, like, where are you at, who are you with, that kind of it's kind of the start of the jealousy or increasing the jealousy. Wanting to know your location. Oh, they want to save your location. There's also the social media aspect where they think they want you to share your passwords. Oh, I just want to see, I just want to be, there's no reason. I tell people all the time, you don't have to share your password with anybody, because they're like, oh, but he loves me. It's just fun. Ask, do they share their password with you? Because it's usually a one-way side. They go just want your thing, and it can turn any time. And post something, they delete your friends. Uh, they start noticing, like, I didn't realize, because it was kind of just a one-off situation, but one time he was saying, oh, who's this person that's messaging you? And the cell phone was a very difficult situation, because if I was on my cell phone, who are you talking to? Like, if I was paying attention to the phone, why aren't you paying attention to me? So the cell phone, my cell phone, I usually just sat down and like left it alone. But he had his cell phone on him all the time, and so he saw that message before I even knew it existed, from Facebook. And I should have at that point gone, how do you know that? How do you know what how did you see this message? Because when you get a messenger message, it's not posted on your profile. uh, some things like, some quirks like that, wanting to know your location, that's a big one. uh, taking all of your time, making you feel guilty for going to work or going to your other activities. Oh, I just want to spend time with you, I'll miss you, da, da. It becomes like that increases, from being, oh, that's so nice, you want to be with me, okay, I'll cancel my plans, to you just stop making plans because they make it so difficult for you to actually go do something with someone else or do anything that they're not involved in. And so that's it feels good. People are asking to be with you 24 hours a day, and they like you, and some people are comfortable with that. Some people are in new relationships are like, this is so wonderful. And then there's just other people who are like, this is weird. They right off the bat feel that this is not right, kind of feeling.
Mhm.
But it does feel romantic at first. It kind of, going on vacation, someone saying, oh, I'm gonna take you away this weekend. Wow, that's, oh, for me it was like, oh, my ex-husband, we haven't gone away forever, kind of experience. And so I was, really excited. Oh yeah, this is awesome. You're planning it. Oh, even better, kind of, idea for me. So I would say, the jealousy, the location, the constant communication, and again, the trust thing already starts breaking down pretty fast. But the good manipulator will do it very slowly, slow but fast. It's hard to say that. They'll do it just enough that, like, they gain a little bit of this kind of trust, and so then they'll push it a little bit farther the next time. Maybe week by week. Within 3 months, I was completely isolated. I hadn't seen my family in in 3 months. I used to see them every weekend, and that weekend was a huge deal to go out of town. But while I was away, he called 50 times a day, kind of thing. And so they don't want you to go out and see other people or be with other people, because other people recognize, like, that's kind of insane. You're going to move in together already, or, why is he calling 50 times a day? My family, that weekend when I was with them, they're like, why does he keep calling? What's his problem? And that's exactly what an abuser or someone who wants to manipulate or control someone doesn't want to have happen, is anybody giving outside opinion or noticing these things aren't a good thing.
Mhm.
So
Well, yeah, um, I can see that you're very passionate about what you talk, and that's a very good thing, by the way.
thank you.
That's awesome. Um, yeah. I was gonna say something, I forgot.
Oh,
Um, yeah. It is interesting because these type of men, right,
Hmm.
or even women, it can be both, right?
Right, exactly.
But I figure that this type of people, they target a lot needy people, needy men,
Hmm.
needy women, right? um, because the reality is that if you think about it, those men or women, they're also needy, right? They target people that they have things in common with. The thing is that those type of people, right,
Hmm.
even if them and the victims have things in common, they see it in a completely different way,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah, and
so that
they
is
won't make things in common with you. I mean, generally do the research to figure out what your interests are, what you
yeah,
like or what you don't like, because they want to be able to be like, oh, we're perfect for each other kind of scenario.
right, absolutely. And it's really funny because like um I feel like it always has to do with like how those people were raised.
Mm.
It's like, for instance, like do that person, or like do you was your ex-husband, right?
No, it was someone I dated when I was getting divorced. It was
Oh, when you were getting divorced. Okay.
yeah, it was
All
a
right.
boss. I worked for him initially.
All right. Okay. For instance, like, did he have a good relationship with his parents?
No, he was a someone started very young, getting in trouble, and kind of a defiant kind of person. And his dad actually had committed suicide when he was fairly young, I think in teenage years. And he didn't have a good relationship with his mother, kind of a burden thing. But there was definitely, you could see that she had experienced something. I mean, I did meet her one time, and that she was still afraid of, probably him even thinking that
Mhm.
his outbursts, because as a kid I'm sure he was just like, get my way, throw a fit if I don't get my way, scream, holler, crash things into walls. It definitely was something that started pretty early. And I think a lot of these people do have mental illnesses, or they're narcissistic, sociopath, all these different things that tend to make them this way, as far as there's people can look normal. They always tell people they don't all look like monsters. You imagine like this whole bad person and what they look like, but they could be a doctor, they could be a CEO. All forms of people, careers, rich people, poor people. All those people can be victims as well as abusers. And so it's just a lot of it comes from, yeah, how did they come up in this? What did they witness? What kind of tendencies do they already have in their personality that led them to doing this? In their relationships.
Right. And you are absolutely correct. If there is one thing I know is I have loads of people I know and I've met who have you know completely ignored their emotionality and how they feel, and they just focused on their financials and on their progress in life, right?
Right.
In order to just forget, and in order to just like be okay with their pain, because their financial success, right, would numb their emotional pain. But at
Yeah.
some point, what happened with those people was this, is that is that they the financial success within an industry, when you work a 9 to 5, right,
Hmm.
has a limit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Only when you can become a boss of your own company is when you can get to the millions, right,
Right.
or to the hundred thousands. But you know if you become top in what you do, you'll make like what, like 10K per month. You know as in the 9 to 5, you make $10,000. Only leaders and bosses end up making more than that, because they're the ones who have the company. So 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, right?
Right.
And what happens with a lot of people is that they end up reaching that kind of money, 5K a month, 10K a month, working a 9 to 5. They scale, but then their emotions just, they never worked on their emotions, right?
Right.
They never wanted to, because that's what they were really afraid of, right?
Right. Well, it's kind of also the first form of, if they're really that type of person, the first form of control they have. They've gained this thing, and then they think they kind of have this entitlement, but they don't interact with people or have that have those experiences, and so they're dysfunctional, and it becomes dysfunctional, and
Yeah,
the relationships aren't successful. But they force
absolutely. And
them.
yeah, you're correct, Meg, absolutely. And I'll even tell you one more thing. So I was watching this documentary about stress I think it was yesterday. Well, I watched it 2 days ago, but I barely paid attention. So I was like, you know what, today I'm gonna pay attention to it. So I watched it again, right? And it was like about an hour, and there was a line that said, and I already thought about it before because I'm a big observer. I like to watch people's behaviors, and I like to, I'm a profiler. Let's say I like to see myself as a profiler. Like I like to watch people's behaviors, and I like to dictate it. And there's a whole psychology behind it, not for anyone's harm or whatever, just because I like it. And it's important as well as a coach for myself, because if I can watch, somebody's behavior, in this case, women, right? I can,
Mhm.
she might be telling me one thing, but her body telling me another, right? You know
Definitely,
what I
yeah.
mean? Like her face can be saying another thing, right? So
Right.
it's a great thing. Um, but I was watching the stress thing on the documentary, right?
Uh-huh.
And there was a doctor that was saying, he was saying, well, a lot of the undealt, a lot of the stress that you don't deal with it as a kid comes with you. You know, a lot of the
Mm.
traumas that you don't deal with it as a kid or teenagers come with you as an adult, and so you might not be in danger, but if there is a sound your body recognizes, right? If there
Mm.
is a sound your mind recognizes, your heart recognizes, right?
Right.
um, if there is anything, right, something you can see or something you can see, right?
Right.
Let's say for instance, for example, you when you were a kid, you hid in a closet, right, because
Mm.
your father was unhappy and he came to beat you, right?
Right.
Something like that, right? That person, that guy or woman, will grow up without dealing with those things, and that person will be at home, and at 2 a.m there's like sounds outside, like a little bit like thick and scary, like
Mm.
they look psychotic, and the person is safe because nobody's going to get inside their house, right, or his
Right.
house, right? But it's the nervous system, right? It's the right, it was the neural pathways that were created, the
Right.
programming is still there, right? And
Mhm.
so right, and so it's yeah, it's really, it's fascinating how it works, right?
Right. Oh
but
yeah.
but for, yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, I would say that
No, no.
they're like, for me, things that crash. Like even now, like if there's an accident, it kind of makes my nervous system jump because things got broken. So a plate crashes or a glass crashes in a restaurant. To me, like it's like the little flame comes up my my face flushes red because it's one of those things that was associated with, for me during that time, abuse. So it carries on with you, kind of thing, like a smell, or if they were a big smoker, like for a long time, marijuana. He was a big marijuana smoker, and for me, like for a long time, if I smelt that, or like I couldn't partake in that idea because it made me totally paranoid because it was so associated with that person. And so yeah, I definitely, like, these things that you have as a child and you don't deal with them would come with you to an adulthood if they weren't good things. If they
Hmm.
are good things, it's a good feeling, but most bad things follow you as well.
Yeah, I understand, I get it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. um it's for instance, like what sort of like what sort of signs do you check on somebody, like um so we talked about always calling, right?
Hmm.
The social media, we talked about all those things, but for instance, like, is there like, I know it's hard because especially in the beginning of like the dating and stuff, but like how can a person tell, like how can a person, how can a person trust like the intuition, right? Like how can a person break it from the root of the problem, like.
I mean, I think I teach or talk about like trust your gut, and it's not always your gut. It could be you get sweaty or whatever. Things that make you uncomfortable, your body reacts to stuff whether you want it to or not. You get buzzing in your ears. Something happens when something. When that person used to yell, and then that person was my boss at that time, and we weren't dating. I would get nervous. Like I could feel my face flush, like wondering like what's going to happen kind of next. So being able to listen to your body, and just recognize what it is, because I went to the hospital, I don't know how many times as the relationships got strong or like got more intense, because my stomach was like, is my alarm. And I've had this horrible pain, and I couldn't ever get rid of the pain because I was constantly living in, this, nervousness of walking on eggshells kind of idea. That's another way of doing it. If it's not, you're listening to your body and figuring out like, oh, my hands get sweaty, or, my head starts hurting, or if you don't recognize your body things, then also think about, do you feel like, are you nervous? Like, are the things that make you nervous, scared, anxious? If those general feelings that you're kind of like, wow, oh, that makes me, you don't know what they're going to do next. It's unpredictable. Walking on eggshells feeling, if I just, you start making kind of things like, oh, I'm not going to do that again because that'll set him off, kind of thing. If that the person tends to have large amounts of mood swings. So you're having this romantic dinner, everything's going good. Something like, you smile at the waiter when they set down your water. And then suddenly they're like, what was that? What are you doing there? If you're having something nice happening and then suddenly someone starts kind of grilling you about something so simple, it'll probably bring you over this feeling like, oh God, what's he going to like? Is there going to be something more to this, or is it just going to drop the conversation? Because it's not just a, oh, you're pretty flirty, or like it's not just a passing by conversation. It's more of a kind of starts interrogating your situation. And so being able to just being able to understand that things will start happening, that you'll will, even if you're fighting your intuition, that you might also just notice you start preventing yourself from doing things, and you can't let yourself be yourself. That's another part, is that you're no longer your unique self. They're forming you into who they want you to be. And so if you're finding you have to wear a certain outfit, or you have to put the phone within the first 2 rings, things like that. Like there starts being little checklists that you're in your mind. You're like, okay, I have to do this. They'll be right. This is going to be good. Those are like yellow flags. Red flags come, of course, with like physical abuse and, more extreme measures. But little things like that, if you notice you start having checklists about like how you have to behave or how you have to do something in order to please them, those are, that's another way to go, oh, people don't think about it, and they're like, oh gosh, I gotta go because if I'm not home within a certain time, then he's gonna get angry. As a friend, if someone says that to me, I'm like, oh, what will happen? Like, oh, he just really gets kind of gets angry with me or whatever. That's not a healthy relationship. If someone's worried because you're not home, it's one thing, because they're afraid something's happened to you if you're late. It's different if someone's going to be angry with you or upset with you or make you feel like you're a bad person because you were late, or what were you doing because you were late.
Right.
Yeah. So there's definitely the next level where you're kind of like, oh, I'm noticing my whole behavior has changed, and I'm definitely not myself. I'm kind of on when I'm with them. I'm a certain kind of person.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely correct. And there's a big difference there, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I can imagine how insecure and the need for control those people have to be. And like, I'm not judging or criticizing or anything, or I'm not saying this in a harmful way. I just can't imagine the amount of trauma and like the amount of like problems those people actually went through.
Right.
Because like it must be tough to really not trust anybody. Like it must be very tough to believe you cannot trust anyone. Like it must be very, very, very tough, right? To feel like super lonely in the world, and to feel that you have to carry all these things around, and it must be super tough to believe that you have no friends, and when maybe you have a wife or a husband, and you still feel like you suck as a person, and you know exactly what you are and who you are, and so you need to be narcissistical and manipulative and stuff to keep the person, but still be arrogant enough to in somebody's face not show it or anything. Like it must be super tough, like, because obviously it's not correct, it's not right.
Right.
It's not right at all to have that behavior, whether if you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Um, but it's like it's yeah, it must be very tough. But at the end of the day, so for instance, let's talk about like how did you leave the relationship? Like, so what did you do? Like when was the moment that you said like enough is enough?
Uh, well, I just gave a talk on this the other day, and it's so I'll just give you a couple facts. So on average, a victim, like if they're in an abusive relationship, and depending on how far they are into it, the average victim will go back 7 times before permanently separating from an abusive relationship, for lots of reasons. I mean, whether it's their kids, they have no money, they have no place to live, they miss the person, whatever it is the average of 7 times. And I myself went back 7 times. And each time you go back or attempt to leave, it gets worse. Like the violence gets worse, the control gets worse. And they will manipulate you. They'll use anything from I'm going to kill you to I'm going to, our life's going to be perfect. I promise with all these promises, they try to get you back, they manipulate you. You come back because that's the less of the evil. I did leave, and it's the first time it was after the first physical altercation. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this. Like there's a lot of abuse that was happening before, but it wasn't physical. And so I wasn't really good at, didn't recognize it. So that's why I preach about, recognizing early, because I didn't recognize anything. And so after the physical one, that was the first attempt to leave. The second time, was the promises. Oh, everything's going to be great. And, financially, oh, I'm going to support you. There's all these things. And when I left the second time, he drugged me so I couldn't leave. And I ended up breaking this chin open to the bone kind of thing. So it had got worse from the last time. This is even a little bit more crazy. And you get a little bit more scared of the person. So when they have a threat or a promise, you tend to believe what's going to happen. Like, okay, they are capable of these kind of things. I also, I ended up going to safe houses, living, moving across the state and living somewhere where, I disconnected from social media. I didn't have a smartphone. We still feared my car had a GPS tracker on it. So I never really felt like he was completely gone. But at that point, I was kind of locked in a building. So he couldn't physically get to me at that point. But the seventh time, the last time, I didn't get up. Like I couldn't get up off the floor because the violence was so extreme that like I had a bruise on my shin for 3 years that looked like it was brand new for 3 years. That's how extreme it was. Yeah. And I thought, and there was something different about that last time. I thought he almost was going to kill me because the telltale sign at the end of these bouts that he'd have, or these, extreme physical violence, would be to strangle you. And if you're getting strangled in a relationship, that's like your number one indicator that you're a lot more likely to be killed by your partner. And these things were happening. And my advocate was saying, this is, it's going to get worse, and he is going to eventually just snap and finish the job. So you need to get away. And so that's when I, moved away from here. I was 7 hours away, living in a locked building all the time. And that was kind of the final break for that. And I just said, oh, I can't go back. Like I can't even walk right now. Like what's going to be the next thing that is going to happen? So, it was just something snapped that day. That was like, that was way different. That was more extreme because he went into the bathroom, like in a good mood. And then he came out just like a whole different, like demon looking devil kind of person. And, just started having this fit. And so, something for me just clicked that day and just was like, oh, I'm done. I can't go back. He will kill me next time. So, unfortunately, he continued to stalk me for 5 years after that. So I didn't really get away, but physically, I didn't go back to him after that time.
So. Like I've known about people like, because I even feel like when you stalk somebody, Meg, like, I feel like there's levels to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right, like there's levels because it can be like aggressive stalking or like it can be like light stalking.
Right.
It's like.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of what was happening was digital, using spyware on my phone to like access my camera, see what I'm doing. There's hidden cameras in my homes and my car. A lot of people think, oh, it's just computer stuff. It's just technology. You don't understand how much you use your technology, or you have it in front of your face, or it's always with you. So if someone has access to like turn your microphone on and hear what you're doing at 24 hours a day, or see you because your camera is uncovered, basically you have no privacy. It is, I'm sorry, alarm keeps going
No,
off, and like, not
don't
sure why
worry.
it does that. But
No,
anyway,
no, no,
so
sorry.
the digital stalking can be just as scary as the physical stalking. So every once in a while he'd appear, or you knew he was there because he'd broken into the car or the home. The door was left open, and just not knowing, was a very scary part of that. But yeah, the different levels, do they just keep showing up to where you're at? Have they accessed your calendar and they know everywhere you're going to be, and so you just keep seeing them, or they're seeing their vehicles? um, are they more aggressive? Do they break into your home and they leave telltale signs that they've been there? So they say, I can get to you even if your door was locked. I've gotten in here, like, good luck, kind of sigil, and some people are just like, they love you, they're infatuated with you, so they send flowers, and they call, and you change your number when they get the new number, or they email you constantly. So there's definitely different levels, and how intense someone will get. But any of it's just scary, just having someone who's, you never know what's going to happen with stalking. And so, like, just that feeling. And even like, you move to a new city to get away from the person, you don't tell anyone, you get a new phone number, you get a new email, you haven't told anybody your job, and you get flowers the first day at work. I mean, people are like, why is she freaking out? She just got flowers. That's so nice. No, that means he's found me already. Like, I didn't get away this time. And so, people have to think about different things can be different triggers for different reasons, especially with stalking. So,
Right. Absolutely. Toby said, so she said, yo, just jumping in sounds like you just left a narcissist.
definitely he's narcissistic. I didn't know if he's a sociopath or which one he was as far as the additional thing, because he enjoyed torturing people and seeing them hurt. That it didn't faze him to see people bleeding, kind of thing. That was kind of what he did in his in part of his life early on, is enforce the rules, hurt people on purpose. And so, yeah, he was definitely a narcissist. He definitely had that one for sure. And then just figuring out the second part is has always intrigued everyone. Like, oh, I wonder which one he is. So, yeah.
So, like Toby also said, love to you. I just left a narcissist who threatened to dismember me. Crazy.
Well, yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah. Or just a stalker.
Go ahead.
She also said, your CNES is still supercharged because of it. Come to my group. Oh yeah, so Toby has a group as well.
Okay.
That she just created, and yeah, you should totally like jump with her on it.
Yeah, connect with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say there's all different things, from just saying, oh, like you're fearing another altercation physically, or you're fearing something else. But I mean, at one point you just threatened to like send friends to, he sent a text message that said the last person who kept talking to the police, she was tortured, raped, and then she was thrown off a building. And I was like, you're basically telling me that's what you're going to do to me, and it's people will be like, why would there are people out there like that? And it's like, oh yeah, unfortunately there are people out there like that, and the lengths they'll go to keep the control or keep you in fear so you don't move on in life. So yeah.
And I feel like I figure that is like one of the biggest fears that a lot of women have, is that they end up with a guy like that. They don't really know what to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, you feel like you don't want to end up with that kind of guy, but you don't want to end up alone. So then, like, I just recently went to something where I like found this perfect guy who I liked physically, and there was little flags that popped up quickly, canceling plans, doing this, and I let him slide at first, because I was like, oh, I haven't dated in a long time, and I really liked this guy, like I'm really attracted to this person, and I let a couple bumps slide, and then, my family and friends were like, oh, so what's the rule about this? Because I'm always preaching about things that pop up and like warning signs, and I'm like, I know, I just like, they said, you're just letting it slide because of how he looks. And I said, I know. And so eventually I just kind of confronted him, saying, this is not for me. You're kind of crazy. Don't respect me. The behaviors are unacceptable, and I have a standard or minimal, and you can't even reach that. So I think that, we should end this. But people forgive things because they want to be in a relationship so badly. People want to be in love and have that. And so sometimes you kind of forgive things that you should really, get out of really quickly.
Absolutely. No, you're correct. And it is true. It's like, you should totally, like, there has to be a point where, again, like, enough is enough, and that's why I asked you that question, because it's like I wanted to really see, like, at what until what point did it get, because if it always gets worse, right,
Right.
then, like, at what point does things, do happen, right? Like, um and it requires, like, a lot of strength to be in a situation like that,
Mhm.
because if it comes to a point where you don't even know if the next day you're going to be alive, because you might think you did something, and then he's going to be like, no, enough is enough, this can't keep going, and he's just making movies in his mind, right?
Right. Definitely.
It's like, it's so unpredictable. You're never safe. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what people are going to do. You don't know what he's going to say. You don't know what will be the next fascinating, brilliant idea he's going to have. Maybe he wants to move you to Australia, which is all the other way around the world, right? And,
For sure.
delete all your social media. And then if you don't delete it, like, that's it, like, he's going to, like, do something bad to you.
Right. Oh yeah,
It's like,
there's all these things. Definitely. You're right. Yeah.
yeah. And, it just becomes like a really, becomes so bad, so bad, so bad, so bad.
Yeah.
And
And I
so,
think
for instance, like, oh,
that,
yeah, go on. No, no, go
oh,
on, go
no,
on.
I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you. I was just gonna say, yeah, and like when it gets so bad, you kind of feel like it's impossible. Like you can't leave because they've made you think that you can't leave. You'll not survive. Well, you get killed, where you get what the unpredictability makes it so it's like it's gonna be impossible to leave this person, or it's gonna be impossible to ever get out of this situation. And so definitely, people have to be very strong. And even if they go back 7 times and you're kind of frustrated with a friend, you're like, you need to like say, this is there's a lot of things happening here, and that like you don't know what they're holding over that person's head, or why they're bringing them back. But give people kudos if you see a victim leave. Like it took a lot of strength to get out of that relationship, even one
Yeah,
time. So
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. No, it absolutely did. And, like, you only know what is, like, for instance, I don't know what that is like, right? Like, I don't
Right.
know what it's like to be a victim of, domestic violence, or a victim of rape, or, I don't know what that is like. I never been through that. I never done that to anybody. I know what it's like to come from a narcissistical family,
Mm.
in some aspects of it, in some whatever, I know what it's like to come from a family where people are like, yeah, I know I'm not very easy to deal with, but it's all bullshit. It's all like, it just comes from the mouth, because when it comes to behavior changes, there's zero,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Oh yeah.
they can admit that they have the thing with the problem, but if they don't change, what does it matter, right?
Yeah.
Nothing,
Right.
right?
Yeah, they rarely do change. I mean, it is up to the victim to change the situation, to figure it out.
Right,
And
absolutely, because they're not going to change. Like, nobody's going to change, right? It's like, whether if you're a narcissist, or you're a manipulator, whether if it's people in your family, whether if it's somebody in your friend circle, whether if it is your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife,
mhm.
if they don't want to change, then you have to change. But you have to change, try and change far away from them, because they're not going to change.
Oh yeah, and you're not safe until
So,
in that situation. So
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, I think that yeah, that's the hardest thing for people to realize, especially if they really love that person. They've been married, they don't want to break the marriage. Oh, other people will look down on me because I've done this. You're embarrassed about the situation you're in, or because that person is like two different people. And when you're behind hidden doors, they turn into this evil person and do these things to you. But out in public, they're like the most liked person. Everyone's like, oh, he's the best, and so no, you think, oh, no one's going to believe me, so you'll have no support system. That's it's a But yeah, they don't change, and like all these things like drugs, alcohol, stress, that the victim, they blame it all these things on like what happened from these things. I'm
yeah,
just really stressed out, the work is crazy. That is not an okay thing to abuse somebody or take it out on somebody else. Like you
yeah,
need to learn how to control yourself. And I always thought you can control yourself and put on this complete facade of who you are when you're out in public or you're at work and talking to people who have money who want to invest in your business. But you like let that go completely when you get with me. You don't even try to control your emotions or the violence. And so it's a pretty interesting thing. You're like, you can control it, you just choose not to. You choose to be an abusive person.
right,
Yeah.
correct, correct, absolutely right. We are reaching the end of the
Oh.
episode. Um, this was, well, I don't want to say fun, because it's a bit weird,
I know.
but
I would say people are, oh, I don't talk about fun stuff. So
but it was rather interesting and fascinating, for sure. And I want to thank you, Meg, for being here.
yeah, thank you for having
Uh,
me.
if you have, 3 tips that really helped you with enduring the situation, but also leaving the situation,
Mhm.
would you like to share them?
Yeah, I would say for one, you're not alone. Like either what's happened to you is happening to a lot more people than you're expecting, and so don't feel ashamed. Don't like it's not you're not the one to blame. Uh, get help. There's people like all these things that they put in hindrance, like your children, your pets. You don't have any money. If you're just dating, if you just don't know how to get out, there are people to help you, and they want to help. They know the hurdles you're going through. They're experts. So reach out to a victim advocate. If they'll even help, erase your phone so they don't see that you've called this victim advocate. Whatever you can do, just know that help's available and you can get out of this relationship. And then in the beginning, don't be aware. Just be aware of what's happening in the relationship, and share it with your friends and let them know, because there's going to be one person who's logical and going, yeah, I know you're happy, but this is a little strange, and then take it to heart. Don't just blow it off and like, oh, they're just jealous. It's the outside point of view that sees what you're not seeing. And so if you can't trust your gut, then listen to family and friends. Don't get isolated. Keep going out with friends. Keep your hobbies. When you get in a relationship, don't drop everyone and everything. Keep being you. And that's part of the way of keeping a healthy relationship is just not giving up everything about yourself and all your friends and all your everything that you liked before, because that's part of like what the power and control starts with. So yeah, those would be some of my tips as far as getting healthy, staying away from abusive, and then getting out. So
Right. Absolutely. I love that. I love that, Meg. I love that. Well, thank you very much for being here.
thank you.
Um, you're welcome. And yeah, I will chat soon. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So thank you. Bye.